Hello and welcome to Bud Explains, where I take a subject, be that rules, history or concept, from the role-playing world and try to explain it to you in a way that I hope helps you understand how it works. Today's explanation is Nysalor, the god of truth and lies in Runequest. Before I begin, I would like to thank all of the artists who allowed me to use their work in this video. Dan Barker, Dario Corallo and Katrin Dirham, as well obviously as Chaosium, and a special thanks to Johnstown Community Ambassador Nick Brooke for his invaluable help in getting the story straight. In 352 of the Dawn Age, learned folk from across Glorantha travelled to the lands of Dorastor, where scholars claim to have discovered the secrets of the universe, and the Second Council came to decide, in what is now considered a massive act of hubris, that they would recreate the glory of the deities of the Golden Age by bringing into being a new god. The decision was not unanimous, and war broke out with the trolls, dragonoots and hjortlings, and the Darahapans also joined the council, causing a revolt, though even without them, what was now known as the Broken Council grew in power and influence. In 372 ST, the Darahapan Emperor incorporated the Second Council into his bright empire and devoted all of his efforts to welcome this new god, a god they had decided collectively that they would call Osantalka, the Perfect One. And this all culminated in an event known as the Suntop in 375. Like some great and powerful synchronicity, a number of simultaneous events of titanic magnitude coincided with the birth of this new god into the world. In Dorastor, the Second Council performed their ritual to bring about the genesis of the Perfect One. In Frenella, Malchione wizards contested a barbarian god using thaumaturgy with the promise of a sign of might to take out their enemies. In Kralorilla, the Dragon Emperor performed a meditation on a symbol of unknown power or purpose, calling upon the dragon's eye to shine upon him. And in Pamaltella, 100,000 elves sent energies through the world to summon a powerful spirit to fight a virulent decay that was affecting their jungle homeland. Then, at the climax of these great events, the sun stopped in the sky. Nobody truly knows how long it stopped for, as it seemed that all time was halted. Mortals looked to the sky and the sun did not move. Eventually, dark strands came from the west of the world and hooked themselves around the sun, forming a colossal net, pulling the sun back into its path. The strands broke, causing terrible shadows upon the world, and a great, dark spot rose up, the bloated shadow flickering with a glow of smoke, making the sun dark and the world momentarily cold. Terror struck Glorantha for a moment, and then, as soon as it had appeared, the web vanished. The shadow dissipated, and the sun glowed, though many said it looked paler than before. Others say that, from that day on, it moved through the sky in a different manner. Great revelations were discovered. In Pamaltella, the spirits were made stronger by a heat that allowed the elves to combat the infectious rot. The Kraloran Dragon Emperor was liberated with a new state of consciousness, and in the lands of Frenella, the invading god was brought to their knees with weakness, and the wizards wiped out their army. And in the land of Dorastor, there was a wondrous, miraculous birth. A new god was brought into the world, Osantalka, the Perfect One, though he would come to be known by another name, Nysalor, the White Light, the Bright One, the Illuminator. No contemporary images of Nysalor survived the end of the Dawn Age, though in Peloria he is often depicted as a radiant man with a third eye who levitates above the ground. He was held in wonder by the people who spread his teachings. He led what was known as the Golden Empire from 374 to 449 ST, and over the years his cult, known as Riddlers, grew peacefully and spread from Dorastor to the east and into Peloria and then further to Ralios. The cult was kind, and the elves seemed especially attuned to Nysalor's grace and mystical enlightenment, though that is not to say he was beloved by all. Nysalor's armies grew and marched to the heart of Dragon Pass. In 378, the Darahapans formed a new army that contained dwarves and elves amongst their forces and led an invasion into Dragon Pass. The following year, a great meeting was fought that was known as the Battle of Night and Day between the Broken Council and the rebels. In this battle, new gods appeared and fought alongside men, and Nysalor was victorious. Dragon Pass was occupied by the High Council of Ganatella, and they marched onwards to Slantos. It was during this battle that Nysalor placed a great and terrible curse upon Kaigalitor, the mother of all trolls. Most newborn trolls birthed from that day forward would be stunted mockeries of this proud race. Small and ineffectual, often born in litters, they came to be known as the Trollkin. The Hjortlings were broken and enslaved, with a priest of Nysalor, Lochamayadon, usurping Gorlant's place in their temples. The Inhuman King was also killed by Nysalor, and the Dragon Newts were conquered, becoming mercenaries for the rulers of Dorastor. However, it seemed that wherever Nysalor journeyed, peace and prosperity followed, with the peoples of Peloria having memory of it as the good god's time. The cult seemed to transcend all boundaries, whether they be political, family, or even cult. In the west, the cult proselytized the Seshnegi and Brethini cultures, despite their disdain for the cult of the Bright One. There was a point, however, when everything changed. A great plague broke out in Tanasor and spread to Aralanit and Seshnella that, coincidentally, the riddlers of Nysalor seemed to be the only ones who could cure it. That was until the coming of Arkat. Arkat was a man who originally came from the land of Brithos, where he grew up with the Eldrei army, with some even claiming that his father was Humact himself. He was raised as a soldier and considered immensely talented with the sword, and it is said that at some point in his youth he saw the dark side of the cult of Nysalor, pronouncing that the god was actually a chaos deity spawned into the world called Gabaji. Arkat made it his life's goal to eradicate the cult. He led soldiers in the Brethini expedition in the year 400 to liberate the provinces from the cult of Gabaji, wielding a great sword known as God Cleaver, though the cult was accepted here as one that could cure previously unheard of diseases. The Wizards of Brithos, however, uncovered evidence that the Riddlers had planted the disease here in the first place, and from this point Nysalor began being known as Gabaji the Deceiver. Once the provinces were freed from the cult, they volunteered forces to the Brethini army. Unfortunately, that army was wiped out by vampires when it attacked the kingdom of Tanasor, with most of the leadership being wiped out. Arkat had no forces to fulfill his vow, and he felt that he was held back by the limitations of the Brethini caste system, and as such joined the Herstoli household of King Blastring of Seshnella in order to master common skills, martial arts, leadership secrets, and the science of sorcery, thus becoming a Herstoli knight or man of all. Arkat's army moved into Tanasor as the cult of the Deceiver was driven out of Seshnella, and in the year 400, a Brethini army attacked the kingdom of Tanasor, where King Blastring died fighting from a stretcher in an assault on the temple of Nysalor in Froal. Blastring's brother, Heelwolf, took command and began wiping out the cult, and his bastard brother, Iannalir, led resistance against him. In a great battle in 415, Iannalir's army transformed into monsters, and the king was slain, with even Arkat almost being overwhelmed. After many years of fighting, the capital was taken, and Arkat wiped out the vampire kings of Tanasor and their vampire legion. From there, Arkat's crusade against chaos moved further into Ralios, discovering that many human and non-human races had embraced the cult of Nysalor. In a terrible setback in the year 418, Arkat was slain by a lieutenant of Nysalor known as Palangio the Iron Rock, who had led the conquest of Cathella. Harmas Barefoot, a renowned hero of Orland, undertook the Lightbringer's hero quest, returning from the underworld with Arkat in 422, and Arkat joined the Orlanthi cult of death, becoming known as Arkat Humact's son, in order to conquer Slontos. Arkat's forces grew, and he was even joined by a number of Orlanthi tribes, despite their mistrust and fear of Malchione sorcery. The strongholds fell under the weight of Arkat's armies until they amassed at the east of Ralios at the fortress of Cartalin at the City of Wolves. The Telmori embraced chaos to become a race of werewolves, and they commanded the High Lama Pass, which led to Dorastor. Arkat's forces stormed the city and put everything there to the sword. Over the coming years, Arkat slowly but steadily approached the strongholds of Nysalor's cult in Dorastor. Arkat had been initiated into the cult of Humact in 426, and he was rumoured to wield the unbreakable sword, said to have been forged by the god himself. He was considered to be the liberator of Slontos and the long-promised killer of chaos. When he was being initiated as a sword of Humact, he was wounded, and in that act had a critical insight which made him discover hero questing. Arkat marched on, and his army encroached upon the Shadowlands, a place where they were aided by the Orlanthi and an army of trolls. Arkat recognised the troll powers to help them fight chaos, and within a year the cult of Nysalor, or Gabaji as Arkat saw it, was driven from Dragon Pass. Arkat delved further into the study of hero questing and entered the otherworld in order to explore and exploit its riches and gain allies against Gabaji. A religious fanatic, Arkat entered into all the cults he joined with fanaticism. However, after several of these initiations, he began to notice that he ended up in the same place, though in different roles. He took it upon himself to map out his experiences and put together the connections of the mythology, ritual and legends of Glorantha, and created a number of secret passages that allowed him to be the first person to map the hero plane. Arkat struggled in Peloria, losing as many battles as he won, and as his allies fell away, it was at this time that Arkat undertook the troll adoption rites ritual, a powerful magic of Cartography that transforms a non-us into a true us, and he actually became a troll. In 448, Arkat joined the troll cult of Cartography, becoming Arkat King Troll, and further went on to join the cult of Zarak in order to bring might and annihilation against his enemies. This act left the Lightbringers who had accompanied him horrified, seeing that they had brought darkness, not light, and they abandoned Arkat. The Humacti were dumbstruck seeing their lauded leader behaving in a trollish way, and many of the Westerners left his entourage demoralised, spreading tales of how Arkat had become not a liberator, but a destroyer. In the meantime, Arkat's army continued its inevitable press toward Dorastor and Nysalor himself. Arkat razed Dorastor, driving the forces of chaos from it, and both him and Nysalor summoned heroes and demigods to aid them. However, in 450, atop the Tower of Dreams, sometimes known as the Tower of Justice, in the City of Miracles, Arkat and Nysalor met face to face in a single combat that was so intense that the very fabric of reality seemed to fracture around them. The city was reduced to toxic dust, and from the ruins only one emerged: Arkat. Or at least what appeared to onlookers to be Arkat. He had fulfilled what he had intended to do, and his destruction of Nysalor was complete. Now to only be known as Gabaji the Deceiver, whose body was dismembered and buried under tons of rock and water by powerful sorcery across Garantha, his soul imprisoned in the deepest hell. He then turned his attention to Dorastor itself. He salted the land, poisoned the water, and called the Curse of Cleansing. This left the land bleak and barren, reduced to a vast lake of mud and ash. According to his friends, Arkat was, perhaps suspiciously, no longer trollish after the battle. His crusade had taken 50 years, and Arkat, fulfilling what he had meant to do, retired to a farmstead in Valios. Those who worshipped Nysalor continued to pray and offer sacrifice to the god, but were met with silence. The cult of Gabaji was gone. The people of Valios returned to their old gods and forever held Arkat with the kind of bitter contempt of someone who had killed a friend. However, that was not the end for Nysalor. During the Second Age, Nysalorian illumination was forbidden. However, the Red Goddess, upon taking a great path to apotheosis through the spirit plane, saw passage beyond the Great Shadow. She defeated it, and in the process liberated the spirit of Nysalor, who went on to illuminate her, while also binding Gabaji, at least according to Lunar doctrine. This allowed her to go to deeper places and free the Crimson Bat. From that point on, the beliefs of Nysalor became an integral part of the cult of the Red Goddess. Indeed, lunar depictions of him show him haloed with the Moon Rune. The question as to whether Arkat was right to do what he did, and Nysalor was in fact a foul god called Gabaji the Deceiver, is one that has sparked great debate over the years, though from a simplistic view, it seems that they were two sides of the same coin. That what could be considered the light side of illumination is ultimately driven away by its dark, more tempting twin. And curiously, many Pelorians know Gabaji as the name of a monstrously destructive being of darkness who came from the west and spread self-serving lies to wage war and bring destruction against their beloved, benevolent god. If you found this video useful, don't forget to like and share it, and make sure to subscribe for more Bud Explains videos in the future. Bud out.